You say we have to help our small businesses by raising the minimum wage. That's not helping. I think it should be a state option. Alabama is different than New York. New York is different from Vermont. Every state is different. It should be a state option.
You said very recently.
We have to help. It's very important. We have to help our small businesses. How are you helping your small businesses when you're forcing wages? What's going to happen, and what's been proven to happen, is when you do that, these small businesses fire many of their employees.
You said very
Tell me the effect raising the minimum wage would have. Now, any state can raise minimum wage right now. But there's a big difference between if you have a business in Alabama or Mississippi and one in Seattle. So to make this a national thing, is this the right time to focus on that?
No, it's the worst time, because you've got so many bars and restaurants and stores have been shut down, and they're barely able to stay profitable and in business, and they're facing bankruptcy. Now Joe Biden is going to blast them with a requirement that they raise their wages when they're barely able to stay in business. It's the worst time. And incidentally, this has not gotten a lot of attention, but in that minimum wage requirement of $15 an hour, that might make sense in a state like New York or New Jersey. But, Alabama, Arkansas, West Virginia, that's going to destroy hundreds of thousands of jobs. And people don't realize this. They also get rid of what's called tip credit, which is that, restaurants don't have to pay the minimum wage to workers, because anyone who's ever worked as a tip worker, you make your money from the tips. Now it's $15 an hour plus tips. That's going to kill the businesses. It's going to kill our restaurants.
What's the impact of the Biden plan on your business in Florida?
Well, I mean, obviously, getting money to people is helping us, but this minimum wage is absolutely going to destroy the hospitality industry in Florida and across the nation. They're trying to paint with a broad brush the entire nation. They're trying to say that what's good in Alexandria, Virginia is good in Alexandria, Tennessee, and we can't do that. The market's always driven what we pay people to work, and that's what we need to continue. So raising it to $15 is just going to increase costs. It's going to increase menu prices. It's going to increase all consumer prices.
Mr. Vice President, we are talking a lot about struggling small businesses and business owners these days. Do you think this is the right time to ask them to raise the minimum wage? You, of course, support a $15 federal minimum wage.
I do, because I think one of the things we're going to have to do is we're going to have to bail them out, too.
You say we have to help our small businesses by raising the minimum wage. That's not helping. I think it should be a state option. Alabama is different than New York. New York is different from Vermont. Every state is different. It should be a state option.
You said very recently.
We have to help. It's very important. We have to help our small businesses. How are you helping your small businesses when you're forcing wages? What's going to happen, and what's been proven to happen, is when you do that, these small businesses fire many of their employees.
And you asked me what we should be doing. What I would tell Joe Biden is just let the economy grow.
So if you were forced to get up to the $15 number per hour for your waiters and waitress and kitchen staff and everybody, what would the impact be? Would you hire more people? Would you have to hire fewer people?
Well, Martha, what most people don't realize is probably 2/3 of the hours in a restaurant are tipped employees, bartenders, servers. And they're already, through the tip process, they're already making $25 to $40 an hour. In our store, they're making around $30 an hour. If we raise everyone to $15 and we don't take into consideration tip credits, then we're going to basically give everybody a pay cut, a 50% pay cut, because they'll go from $30 an hour to $15 an hour. I've got 4 stores here on the west coast of Florida, and in one of my stores, if the minimum wage goes to $15 an hour, still with tip credits as we have in Florida, it will increase my payroll at this one store $500,000 a year.
Well, the real irony of this is that these Democrats keep talking about how they want to help minority businesses, and look, everybody's for that. But what they're not saying is that the businesses that got crushed, just flattened by the Democratic lockdowns all over the country in states like Michigan and Illinois and California and New Jersey and New York with Democratic governors, those were the minority businesses and the minority workers. I've made the case that there's been no policy in modern times that has hurt minorities more than the lockdowns of our economy. And so I think they're very two-faced on this, and I think we don't need to continue to have All we need to do is have policies that allow minority businesses to stay open. And of course, we have half the Democratic governors who don't want that to happen.
That's 17% of my sales would be in an increase in sales. So what am I going to do? Obviously, restaurants work on small margins. I don't have 17% on my bottom line. So I'll have to raise prices. Yeah. And that's going to drive our seniors in Florida away. They're not getting the raises. My dad's Social Security went up 1.9%. He got a $34 a month raise this year. That's not going to help.
What would help? If you could say one thing to the incoming president that would help you run your business better in these really challenging times, what would you ask for?
You know, Martha, what I would ask is he takes everything into consideration, because we need to take tip credit. We need teen wages. I've got 4 high school students at my front doors at every shift, welcoming you to come into the restaurant to seat you. I can't afford $60 an hour.
It's the bottom wage in 21 states, while 29 states and Washington, D.C. have set their minimum wages above the federal level, with California mandating $14 an hour, now the highest statewide minimum wage in the country. And Florida, a conservative state, just voted to move to $15 an hour by 2026. A living wage in America is at least $16.50 an hour for a family of 4 with 2 working parents. That's according to researchers at MIT, who point out that living costs vary widely, of course, by location. Raising the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour by 2025 could leave up to 3.7 million Americans jobless, as employers could potentially scale back.
And it's folded into Biden's massive $2 trillion rescue package that he also announced this week, whose price tag has some Republicans reacting. Senator Pat Toomey said this, quote, blasting out another $2 trillion in borrowed or printed money would be a colossal waste and economically harmful.
What do you think the focus should be? They brought out the so-called rescue plan. I wanted to get your assessment of that and whether it's a good thing or whether it's going to stay the way it is or needs to change before it passes the House and then the Senate.
Well, this is a fiscal atrocity, this bill that Joe Biden talked about last night. Another $1.9 trillion of debt on top of the, look, we just passed $1 trillion stimulus bill 2 or 3 weeks ago. Joe Biden said he was going to be remember, he said he's going to be a moderate Democrat. He'll be a centrist. He's not going to be in the Bernie Sanders. But it looks to me like Bernie Sanders wrote that bill. It's $15 on a minimum wage, paid leave, gender equity grants, $350 billion of blue state bailout, on and on, $400 of bonus unemployment benefits that pay more workers more money for staying unemployed than going back on the job. Those are policies that are negative for the economy.